Section 3. You will hear two archaeology students talking about a dissertation. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hi, Wesley. It's been a while since I saw you last. How have you been?
Hi, Tara. Everything has been fine. I'm working on my archaeology dissertation. You wrote yours last year, right?
Yeah, on the Bronze Age.
Oh, really? That's the era I've chosen too.
Oh, great. Well, you might be interested in joining a dig we are going on with our professor at a quarry in Cambridgeshire. It's just a few hundred metres down the road from Kingsdale Forest. We aim to find out more about the roots of beaker culture in England.
I would love to. The beaker people were famous for their copper and bronze bottles, right?
Yes, that's why they got the name beaker, but there's some argument among archaeologists about whether the beaker people were originally English or were a foreign group whose products increasingly ended up here due to trade. Whichever is true, their products first appeared in England around 4,000 years ago, according to the archaeological record.
That's fascinating. Joining this dig could be helpful for my dissertation, actually. Hopefully, there might be some clues about the written language of the beaker culture that I could use. And seeing how they were influenced by earlier cultures would be interesting.
Sure. I'm so glad you'll be coming along. So, is language in the Bronze Age what you are researching for your dissertation?
Well, I'm taking a course in linguistics, which involves looking at the roots of ancient languages. So I'm particularly curious about Celtic languages during the Bronze Age. Unfortunately, it's impossible to determine what the people spoke or whether there was a standard language used in the period. So I'm not sure if I'm on the right track.
Interesting. I'm sure that coming on the dig will help focus your research. There could be inscriptions on the artifacts, so you might be able to determine whether they are related to Celtic dialects.
True, something like that would be a huge help for my dissertation.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you can read through questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
If you really want to offer an overview of the roots of Celtic languages, you should also look into the Hallstatt culture. I think that's generally considered to be the basis for Celtic culture and language. So it would be worthwhile to compare the beaker culture and the Hallstatt culture in relation to Celtic languages. I think a comparative approach would be really interesting.
That would be good. I've been reading about the Hallstatt a lot, so I have some good material for that already.
I would also suggest doing an overview of the existing archaeological record, since there would be a lot of artifacts related to the early growth of Celtic languages. In fact, I think my professor has done some work in Wales, which might be interesting for you. He discovered some very early tablets, which were inscribed with a Celtic script, although he was actually looking for beaker artifacts at the time. They dated them to just before the start of the Iron Age, in the very last decades of the Bronze Age.
Wow, that's really interesting, and definitely something I could write about in my dissertation.
You can talk to him on the dig then. I'm sure he has far more to say on the subject. How much have you written so far?
Not much. I've written an introduction, but I think I'll have to go back and revise it. The only part which I've done and I'm happy with is the literature review.
Well, that's not too bad. I almost completely rewrote mine before handing in my dissertation. Also remember that primary sources are really important for an archaeological project, so I would try and find more artifacts you can write about. I'm sure there are some in the British Museum which could be relevant. Have you looked there yet?
Not yet, but that's a really good idea. I'll look into that this week. Thanks so much for your help, Tara.
No problem. And I'll see you at the dig on Wednesday. Remember to bring waterproof boots, gloves, and, if you have one, a backpack. The team leader will bring spades which you can use on the site. I'll send you more details later.
Okay, thanks. And I'll bring my camera so that I can take pictures of the dig. Hopefully we find some interesting stuff.
That is the end of Section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.